Hello, my name is Alicia Shapiro with AInews.com, and welcome to another episode of our Driving Tomorrow Conversations with Industry Leaders, where we explore the latest developments and newest innovations in the world of artificial intelligence. Today, I am thrilled to speak with Catalina Herrera, Field Chief Data Officer at Dataiku. With over 15 years of experience in data science and a deep experience in AI-driven digital transformation, Catalina has been instrumental in helping Fortune 500 companies harness the power of AI to drive meaningful business results. At Dataiku, Catalina and her team are at the forefront of implementing ethical AI practices and scaling AI initiatives across diverse sectors like finance, healthcare, and manufacturing. In today's interview, we'll discuss the groundbreaking work at Dataiku and the strategies for maximizing return on investments. Thank you for joining us today, Catalina.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us, Alicia.
Oh, absolutely. And as I mentioned, you're the Field Chief Data Officer at Dataiku. You've been at the forefront of driving digital transformation using AI and machine learning across various industries. Can you share a recent example of how Dataiku has helped a company achieve significant results and value through AI?
Yes, I have multiple examples, but for that, I think it's a little bit to put a little things on perspective, as in
Mm,
what do we call a successful
yeah.
AI deployment, or what is it that we are driving to make it as successful? And for that, I like us to think on different parallel trends. The number one is everything that is a data outcome becoming somehow an AI application within the enterprise that is generating value somehow. And that can be anything from predictive maintenance to supply chain optimization to quality control and precision in engineering to marketing optimization, generative AI use cases, and everything in between. But if we think about the main, where is the value coming from? What are the KPIs that we're actually affecting? I think we can think about 4 or 5 main categories. First one is cost savings. So a lot of our customers are doing analysis that perhaps were outsourcing or paying a third party to provide insights for specific data. And now they're able to do it themselves with their teams as they are. So they are just questioning the data based on that use case, and that is generating cost savings, right? Revenue growth. We have customers that are now creating this data product or data outcome, for example, a predictive model that now they are selling as part of their portfolio. So now you have one more channel for revenue growth. Operational efficiency. So think about all the micro automation jobs. So again, data outcome AI is this process to really question the data. And at the end, what you are doing is transforming it, cleaning it, making it so you can describe the use case, understand what it's telling you. And there is a lot of efficiencies that you can tie to these automation jobs that translate into these operational efficiencies. Teams that were taking weeks or months to process X or Y information, for example, on structured data now with GenAI. And now they are empowered to do it way faster. So instead of weeks, days is an hour or 30 minutes or 2. So that is operational efficiency. And all of these drives to customer satisfaction, right? So you are at the end, are you measuring, you are doing customer segmentation, churn, and everything else that is actually moving the needle for these KPIs that you care about. To answer your question, multiple examples out there is happening in the field, but it's also happening in a way that is actually generating value, showing how is this better than before and how is helping us as a part of the enterprise business use cases.
I think that's important to note is revenue is important, increasing revenue and growth, but to measure other things as a success as well is important to do because like you mentioned with saving time, it would take normally 2 weeks or whatever, and now you can do it in a day or so. That's incredible. Like you can't discredit that just because it's time.
It's affecting daily lives.
Yeah.
It's better. It's you have time to do other things. You are innovating. Yeah,
Yes.
you're not repeating the same task that is taking you the 5 hours, 6 hours. You micro automate that, and let's think about the next
Exactly.
thing. Yeah.
I like that. And generative AI is such a hot topic right now, especially with enterprise deployments. What are some of the biggest challenges you've seen companies face when implementing generative AI at scale? And how does Dataiku help them overcome these obstacles?
So it is a hot topic, all right. I think it's pretty obvious that it is one of those pivotal moments for the industry where, like an internet or like a cloud, you either completely embrace it or you don't. And maybe the difference between you being the successful enterprise or you not existing anymore in 3-5 years.
Yeah.
So it is fundamental to think about it in a holistic way. For me, every time that I talk about generative AI, I like to introduce it as one more piece of the puzzle, but the puzzle is AI as the umbrella. And then you have all of these techniques, NLP, structure, semi-structure, non-structure, deep learning, computer vision. Like, at the end, what you are just trying to do is the same. Is let me apply some technique, extract the insights for this data, see what I can do with it. But then when you are thinking about enterprise, you add complexity to the equation, right? You have people that brings completely different skills. So you have the IT teams versus the business analyst teams. Then you have to be thinking about who is accessing what. So governance, security, ensuring that your data is in good hands and no somebody is asking the wrong questions to sensitive information, proprietary information. You are dealing with ecosystems that are extremely diverse. And I invite you to think about the last, 20, 30 years of digitally transforming our businesses and the infrastructures that we have as part of this ecosystem. No? So some enterprises are targeting a cloud too, some hybrid deployments. So you still have some on-prem deployments. You still have somebody that is working exclusively in their desktop. Okay, how are we gonna combine all of this and integrate with that existing ecosystem, and at the same time become more agnostic to the change in the near future? Because if we have learned anything in the last 3 years or so, is that this is continuously changing, and then you're going to have more software and hardware, and the hardware is also getting better, compute, storage, CPUs, GPUs, and what else is going on as part of that ecosystem. This needs to be scalable, because once you do one successful generative AI use case, you're going to have a demand for 100 more, 1,000 more, and then how do you think bigger? No, it has to be a framework where these teams can communicate and collaborate and reuse these assets and experiment between one LLM versus the other one, or predict what is going to be the cost for using one LLM versus the other one. No, so all of this is part of the question, plus the value. Which needle are we moving? And who is getting the benefit out of this, and how are we going to measure it? Because at the same time, we need to show that we are creating value somewhere for somebody, right? For the
And you're a strong advocate for ethical AI practices. How do you ensure that these principles are effectively integrated into enterprise AI deployments, especially when working across the diverse sectors like finance and healthcare and manufacturing?
Oh, yeah. And I say that we have access to great tech, and that gives us great power, but with great power it comes great responsibility. And for us, it's fundamentally key to ensure that we integrate any ethical AI principle as part of that enterprise AI deployment. And what that means is that you have to have different strategies in place to ensure that you have the proper framework that is overseen for AI fairness, for bias. How are you gonna be aware of bias? How are you gonna ensure that your framework includes that detection of bias, or you are mitigating, that you have model transparency, as in what is the outcome that this thing is generating, no? That you correlate with the compliance and with your own governance policies. So it has to be part of the standards that you consider when you are considering the key strategies that are part of this solution to support that ethical part of it. It has to be transparent, and the teams need to be able to trust those results, right? So you have to ensure that you have the explainability that you need. So let's say you are predicting, categorizing customers to define if somebody gets a loan or not, and if somebody gets denied the loan, you need to know why. No, you need to have the explainability into it, and then you have to be proactive about it. The responsibility AI practices, the how we consider who is affected if this outcome is wrong, what are the negative consequences of it, and how are we including these responsible AI practices as part of this framework that we are using to connect our people, our processes, and our technology that's going to continue to change. So let's empower our humans, but let's ensure that we keep the human in the loop, no? Defining those guardrails and being very conscient about the key strategies to maintain that ethical standards as part of the deployments.
Do you think and then maybe it's just my own ignorance, but I know that there's going to be a chief AI officer if there hasn't been at companies already. Should there be, or is there an ethical AI officer as well? Because you mentioned that you've got to comply with your own government's rules. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's not good enough just to set up the guardrails. Like you have to adhere to your own rules too. But how can businesses do that? Do they need a governance officer?
Yeah, I see it more and more in the field. It's transitioning. It's kind of a new role that is connecting those dots and is overseeing what is being deployed into production, what are the stakeholders that are involved as part of it, how it correlates with their own internal processes. No, you think about it, instead of you walking down the hallway delivering a folder, you are passing that torch in a digital way where somebody needs to remain responsible for whatever outcome you are generating out of all of these flows that are using all of this enterprise data. So to answer your question, it has multiple tilers at this point, and sometimes it's even under another umbrella that is there, but the reality of it is that enterprises now thinking about it and will have to think about it, right? Because we have regulations coming yes or yes from the government. So even for different verticals, you have different regulations. Health data, for example, is slightly different from retail data, for example, right? You do have different privacy concerns, regulations, and all of that. And now that holistically we are thinking about the act and we are thinking about what it means for us as humans to regulate it and define what those regulations are, there are going to be audits. There are going to be teams asking the questions. So the more transparency we have as part of this process that is generating that whatever AI outcome we are generating, the more important right now for us as humans to ensure that we do have those dots to connect as part of that framework. Yes.
That's good. I'm like, oh, panicked that the businesses aren't going to be ethical.
I know, but this is the time to be thinking about all of this because the technology is there and everybody's using it yes or yes. If you don't have access to it in the enterprise, you are using GPT outside. So it's a fact. So we better face it and properly define what it means for us.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good approach. And at the AI4 conference a couple weeks ago, you discussed strategies for achieving real business value with AI. We touched on that earlier. But for our audience, could you discuss some of the key insights you shared on how organizations can maximize their return on AI, and what challenges do you see as the most significant barriers to achieving those results?
Yeah, and I'm going to recap a couple of things that I mentioned, but I will start with you need to have a needle that you want to move. And the first thing is identify that needle. What is it that we are targeting? So the main categories, when you think about KPIs that AI investments can give you return into, the cost savings is one where you have a lot of options because it's expensive to invest on these platforms, on consultants, or on generative AI tokens. On all of that is investment. You want to see some return into some micro efficiencies. We are doing better, faster. We are generating these results with this fraction of the time as before, with this fraction of the workforce, right? So the revenue growth when you look in another channel to start complementing that portfolio. And when then you start hitting those efficiencies in terms of operational costs and times and all of that, and always affecting some business KPI like customer satisfaction and so on. But we mentioned the challenges. And when I say the challenges is that, again, the last 30 years, when we keep digitalizing our processes, structure, semi-structure, unstructured, and then more teams and more people and more processes and then more technology because we keep acquiring companies inside companies. So we have this initiative that now we're going to create a data lake, or now we're going to democratize data, and we're moving this ecosystem. And then all these enterprises are doing is siloed these tech pockets that don't allow these teams to tech communicate. So part of the challenges that I see in the field when deploying anything that is AI related and show value to it is that it's hard to provide a framework for these super diverse teams to tech communicate, to collaborate, to be able to scale and to be able to learn from each other. So it's not only let's deploy this, good luck, is let's deploy this to who is using it and how are we keeping an eye on it, and is this model drifting, and if it is, needs to be retrained, and if it does, who, and who needs to sign off for that, and who is the stakeholder that is involved in this process. As challenges, the connection between the people, the technology, and the processes is continues to be, I will say, number one. It's not that we understand what technology does. I see a lot of people experimenting with Gen AI right now and deploying some Gen AI use cases into production. I think we know what a predictive maintenance use case brings to the table, and we have known for 25 years at least. So I think that we've proven the value in terms of predictive analytics and all of that, but I think the learning opportunity, or actually a lot of the learning lessons during these last years, have been the need for a collaborative environment, the need for these teams to know exactly which needle they are targeting to move together, so they are all pointing to the same direction, regardless of programmer, not programmer, Python lover, no lover, I don't know anything about programming, but I still need to question my data, right?
Yeah.
I think we concluded the session with the always go back to the basics in terms of the who, how, why, what, when, where, that defined a lot of the project guardrails. Who will this project benefit? How will improve the experience of this persona? The why AI versus any other traditional method? What happens if it is successful? But I will say most importantly, what if it is not, right? What are the consequences of this if we have bad AI in a deployment, an hallucination from a Gen AI model, for example? How are we going to ensure that we keep eye on it? And where is the data coming from? And do we even have it? Do we even have the data available for this? Or when do we deliver this as a version 1 or as a version 2? Or all of those are key components for what needs to happen when you are thinking about this kind of value. It's value out of your AI investments. And when you think about AI investments, it can go all the way from the infrastructure itself, or the software that you added on top of that, or the consultant that you are paying for, or the tokens that you are paying for. All of that is part of that. So what are you getting out of it, and how are you going to prove it? And that's we conclude during those great 20 minutes at that conference in this session. Yeah.
I love that session because I never went that deep before in terms of thinking about how do we protect the data? How do we access it? What do we do? How, like you were mentioning, are we following the guidelines? Do we need to retrain it? It was just so fascinating to me to think of all the different aspects of the data and how you're managing it to find the value. And that was interesting to me.
I appreciate that. And sometimes that's the key, like just for 1 second, think outside your box. And it's like passing the torch, but with a data outcome. Hey, keep my baby alive. And
yes, exactly. And data democratization is a core principle at Dataiku, allowing everyone in the organization to use AI. Strategies do you find most effective in breaking down the barriers between technical and non-technical teams when it comes to AI adoption?
Yeah, and I think that's the number one lesson learned after 3 decades of trying to consume these data outcomes. I'll say that the collaboration is a must. And what that means is that it has to be regardless of your skills. So you are a Python lover, super. You are R, super. SQL, you don't know anything about it. I don't care. We all of us have to be equally empowered to be able to question our data sources from the enterprise perspective, asking about our business question. So everybody's interrogating data outside the enterprise. Again, if we go back to the super example of GPT, where you have a super easy user interface where you are communicating with a bot in a natural language way. So the same concept applies to enterprise data. You need to be able to keep that human in the loop in a low-code, no-code environment. I don't care how do you like to interrogate the data, as long as you can interrogate your data, because ultimately that's where you generate value, is an educated business user that is making the most educated decision that they can make because of the insights that they are getting out of that data. So it has to be as self-service as possible, because there is one frustration in the field, is the bottleneck that usually comes from these teams not being able to communicate and to collaborate, and you have the business analyst requesting an IT team to do A, B, or C, and they have a million other requests, and then a month later you get a dashboard that is not quite there. So you need to go back and, hey, can we add this column? And that last mile causes a lot of frustration and friction. So think about how much of the flow you can democratize, and where do you need to add the bottleneck, if any, and how are you going to empower these users to let them create their dashboard, change the color if you want, add another question if you want, in the way that you feel comfortable with. And that's where you empower these users with low-code, no-code skills to equally be able to collaborate. And you have to have some internal, let's train and enablement programs. Let's ensure that we all know what we are trying to accomplish here. And be empowered by technology. I think this is a very good chapter for humanity, where there is a lot that it can be showing value, and I am seeing it in a daily basis. We are moving many needles out there, but it's not going to be an immediate change. Some of the biggest customers we have 50,000 users, 100,000 users, where it happened in a 5-year period, 6-year period, right? So it's not, oh, immediately we're all using the same framework and working all together. No, it requires a cultural change. It requires an internal enablement. Hey, this is what we are targeting, and this is your role. And I invite you to think outside your role box, and the importance of what's outside your box as well, as part of what we are generating as a data outcome, on as an AI outcome, right? So the collaboration future has to be there, and allowing these users to create these micro automation jobs and efficiencies, right? So imagine somebody that was taking 3 hours every morning, bringing data from silo A, silo B, silo C, creating this dashboard that is populated with the most recent data from that morning. And now those 3 hours can be spent in a completely different thing, because that is a micro automation job, is using the most recent data, is doing the ABC that you are used to do, but you are not part of the IT team. You are just a regular user that is now capable of doing something like that, because the technology is closing the gap in terms of the skills that are needed to produce something like that. And that's the aha moment. Is now it's becoming just like a like clicking the mouse in your desktop is so organic, is so part of what you do in a daily basis. And now we are there with technology. AI is organic, is part of our everyday, is everyday. AI is, we're not even thinking about it, but it's happening all the time, right? So how do you make it happen in your favor? And make the most out of it and produce value in the meantime?
That's great. I love that. And you're an advocate for increasing the representation of women in STEM, particularly through your work with the high tech, high heels. So, how do you see AI playing a role in empowering women in tech? And what impact do you hope to see from initiatives like high tech, high heels in the coming years?
Yeah, I'm very passionate about that. I think I had a flashback to my high school times when my teacher told me not to study engineering. It's like,
Wow,
okay,
really?
yeah, but I took that as a motivation speech, right? But not everybody does it. So definitely very passionate about empowering everybody to know that the sky is the limit. Who cares if you are female, male? This is what is available, no? So for me, is the opportunity to personalize mentorship programs, AI to match skills, to skill development programs, to bias reduction and hiring, right? How are we going to make this fair? How are we going to ensure that this recruitment process is as fair and as transparent as it can be? What needs to happen for us to continue this community building task? The fact that I am having this conversation with you right here, right now, is that early exposure to tech, the knowing that this is available for us today and that we are driving value and the difference in this very important chapter for humanity. I like to connect dots as part of what we do at the chapter, is connect dots between the educational resources and the scholarships and the grants, and ensure that we have a empower new generation that knows that they can accomplish whatever they want to accomplish, and they're going to have the same opportunities that everybody else. The fact that you and I having this conversation again is media representation that again is inclusive, is just see it. So many metrics to move, so many metrics to move, and for us to actually go for it. And I think this is part of it, connecting dots and opening the doors for this newer generation to know that whatever they put their mind into is what they can accomplish, right?
I love that. And especially with AI, I think it's going to be so exciting for the next generation to come and be able to just do whatever they want because they can.
Exactly. And right now is I have new wings with my own AI agents that I'm using on my daily basis. Wow, I love the moment that technology is going through right now, and even more being the empowered human that knows what to do with it. So that's a very nice sweet spot.
And before we wrap up, I'd like to ask a couple lighter questions so our audience can get to know you a little bit better. When you do step away from your work, what are some activities or hobbies that you're passionate about?
Everything is handmade by me.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's my signature right there. I love the space that I create when I sit down and paint. I like incense and candles, and I'm super hippie into my frequencies that I listen to and so on. So I like to paint. As you see, I am a co-owner, co-founder of a paint by number company as well, where with my partner, what we are trying to do is to channel that moment of it's a me time, is reconnecting with yourself, is creating your space and balancing the left side of the brain, the right side of the brain, and add some colors and creativity to it, but in a way guided, so you still end up with something that you feel very proud of, but balancing with the colors. I love that. I am also a DJ. I have a very nice DJ station, and I am Colombian, so that's the accent you hear there. And I come from the salsa, drumming, bongos, congas, timbales background. And that's a way that I like spending my time into. I have a collection of drums, and I like to hit the drum. That's literally. like hitting my drums and I like playing music loud. I am not
Oh,
very conservative with the volume. I know it's not
yeah,
ideal, but it's the truth.
that's true. I've been playing the flute my entire life, and my husband says I play too loud, and he was always trying to close up the windows, and I'm like, "I'm gonna give a concert to whoever's walking by."
I like it. Keep it up.
Yep. And finally, what piece of advice would you give to someone aspiring to enter the field of data science or work in AI in like companies maybe like Dataiku? Are there specific skills or experiences that you believe are essential for success in this industry?
Honestly, I get that question a lot. And I
Do you?
think the answer has been shifting.
Okay.
3 or 5 years ago, I will say, yeah, you need a blend between technical expertise and practical expertise and some soft skills that are necessary. But I think today, I can tell you, you can get very far without technical expertise.
Yeah.
That the technology is closing the gap so quickly into what you can do that I will focus more in the pick a topic that you feel super passionate about.
Mm.
And then
Mhm.
tell me the story of that topic through data.
Oh,
And
wow.
let's see how far you can get with the tools like Dataiku that are actually empowering you to move from descriptive analytics to predictive analytics, or create your own Gen AI agent that talks about the topic that you are passionate about and go deep and deep and deep. So I have my own AI agent, for example,
Mhm.
that I use in my daily basis and is actually consuming all of this unstructured data that is coming from multiple internal silos of information and includes gone calls, conversations, media, internal tables, A, B, C, D. And at the end, I get a super nice conversation with a bot that is saving me a lot of time into highlighting resources or use cases or KPIs or metrics or whatever else I need. And
Mhm.
for somebody that is out there, my advice would be interrogate the data that you feel passionate about. So you love soccer and football, go and get some databases on history on soccer and football and tell me the top 3 things that you learned about that data.
Wow.
How are you
Yeah.
going to tell me that story? And then how are you going to move it from descriptive to predictive? So let's say you learn
Oh,
about
yeah.
your players and now you have solid statistics that tell you what is a good behavior. Why don't you use that into the next season of soccer and make it
Wow.
predictive and tell me who is going to win or who is going to have the higher probability to win? Something that you feel passionate about it, tell me the story on it or tell it to somebody.
Wow.
Apply the questioning of the data technique and use whatever is available for you, right? At this
Mhm.
point is, regardless of the skills, tell me what you learn about that data and tell me what it tells you, because at the end you are the empowered human who is interrogating this data. So what are your questions to this data and how are you going to ensure you're going to get them? And then if we think about bigger enterprise use cases, it's pretty much apply the same. You have, as a business user, you are solving questions from the business. You have OKRs that you are targeting into what you are delivering. So think about the same and your micro automation job. How do you start creating something using AI that is helping you in your daily basis? Like, how are you going to do it automatically? How are you going to
Mhm.
save time? How are you going to make it where you are interacting with a bot in natural language process or with the data? How are you questioning the data? And that's the way, because there you're going to have skills telling the story, connecting the dots in terms of different sources. At the end, that's what it takes somebody professional in data science on AI is you question your data. Tell me
Mhm.
something that is valuable out of that data. How are you going to
Wow.
get there? Oh, crazy. Don't care.
Yeah.
Tell
That
me
is
what you learned.
amazing. I love that perspective. Tell me the story
Tell
about
me
your
the story.
data. I would never have thought about storytelling and data science mingling, but that makes so much more sense now.
Starts with our end goal in mind, right? For
Yeah.
me, my number one is no, I'm going to be a random forest. No, for me, is I want to answer these questions. Let's see which methods are going to give me that answer. And you can still land at the random forest, but
Mhm.
you started with the main question that you're trying to answer.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love that. That's great advice. Thank you so much, Catalina, for joining us today and sharing your invaluable insights. It's been a real pleasure learning more about your work and what you do. So thank you for coming on and talking with us today.
Absolutely, Alicia. It's very nice meeting you, and good luck to you. And I love your journey again. So
Thank
keep
you.
sharing insights with this community that definitely is looking forward to learning opportunities.
Oh, for sure. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
All right.
And for more information about Dataiku, you can visit their website, dataiku.com. Keeping you connected to tomorrow. Today, this is Alicia with AInews.com.